Science-based, evidence-based, science this, science that. It seems like the words scientific training and complexity have become somewhat synonymous in the past years as evidence-based fitness has grown. A scientific approach to training does not mean tracking 200 different variables or living in a sports science lab. You often see people labeling science-based trainees and science-based coaches and evidence-based educators as people that don't even lift, even though we have plenty of really well-known people in the field who don't only just lift, but are also competitive strength and physique sport athletes, as well as work with world champions, but it's not entirely their fault. There are people out there that take a scientific approach to training a bit too far. These people are usually the people that get into training by just looking at the scientific side of things first, usually by following a large YouTube channel that is evidence-based, versus getting into lifting the bro way. And then eventually go smarter about training decisions. People that take a scientific approach to training a bit too far are usually people that have a very calculated approach with many things in their lives, and they try to apply the same to training. But here's where they go wrong. Okay, let me try this resistance training thing out. It seems like it has a lot of benefits. Let me just find the best resources to read and educate myself about lifting. Let me just quickly pause my Toyota Prius order and read all about how to get big and strong. They then start learning about lifting technique, periodization, how to maximize muscle growth and strength. Nothing wrong with that. But this often leads to a great deal of pseudo-intellectual mumbo-jumbo engagement in online forums, on YouTube, on Instagram, and so on and so forth, where it seems as if the most complicated question one can ask will win a medal or something, which can trigger the bros and triggers myself and other evidence-based folk, because in the reality of things, although we love geeking out about lifting, when you're somebody that is very new to lifting, it really doesn't matter whether X exercise may be slightly more optimal based on some mechanistic rationale than Y exercise. Seeing somebody who's new to lifting asking a bunch of questions around absolutely maximizing muscle growth and strength can and is many times infuriating when they don't even lift. This is especially true, and you see that they're leaving plenty of reps in the tank. They're overly focused on having the absolute perfect technique on every lift, but are not training hard. Stop worrying about your Bayesian curls being optimal. Just make sure you have good technique and you're lifting hard consistently. Why are some of these people not able to train hard? This may have something to do with how they got into lifting. Getting into lifting just by yourself, even if you've done all the reading in the world without having somebody there to push you past failure or to failure when you're a beginner, because that comes with a great deal of discomfort and a feeling that is not really familiar to somebody who has never felt it before. All that can make things a bit tricky and can make training hard a bit tricky, especially if you're focusing on everything but training hard. I got into lifting 12 years ago or so with my bro Elias, where we started lifting at school. Our training was just whatever, but full on intensity. Training that wasn't inherently smart, but it did teach us one thing: how to train hard, and the idea that training to the point where you're feeling pretty done is something that is almost non-negotiable when it comes to maximizing muscle growth and in some cases strength. A couple of years later, however, I started learning more about resistance training and then took my training, adapted it, and started training much smarter than before. No more leg day every 29th of February. Training legs became a thing. Some form of structure became a thing. The one thing that remained from those YOLO years was the idea of intensity and the idea that training will be hard and we have to be pushing ourselves. And this brings me to my real point. What does training scientifically really mean? The answer may surprise you. Stick till the end of the video, which is near because the video is finishing. But I digress. ADHD, am I right? Diagnosed, so you can't cancel me and I can say it. 2023, disclaimers. Let's finally talk about what constitutes a scientific approach to muscle growth and strength. So I personally ask you to not screen record this, quote me, make notes, or even download the video. This is top secret, innovative information that comes straight out of the science-based headquarters, because we all know there's such a thing where we're all controlled by one big entity called science-based, I guess. For muscle growth, here's what science says you have to do. And again, bear with me. 1, train very hard, very close to failure or to failure. Perform enough training volume per muscle group per week, roughly between 10 to 20 sets. That may vary based on the individual. Bias long muscle lengths, making sure you're getting a nice stretch on every exercise. Resting enough so that you can perform really well on the next set. And here comes the kicker, okay? Are you ready for this? The science-based people have done it again. You have to be adding weight and or reps over time. So you have to be training hard and progressing your training over time. I mean, it sounds too crazy to be true, right? Like, they've gone and overcomplicated things one more time. What about strength? That's where things get even more sciencey and complicated. So, hear me out. For strength, a science-based approach to strength training, and this sounds ridiculous, means that you have to lift heavy, right, for strength. Get good at the movement that you want to get strong in. So if you want to get your squat to be stronger, you have to be squatting. Science, right? Perform enough training volume. That may be different to hypertrophy, but again, you have to do some sets every week to get stronger. And you may not need to get as close to failure as with hypertrophy. I mean, wow. Now, you're probably thinking, damn, I gotta shut this video down, get off YouTube ASAP, and take this never heard before information and turn it into a business somehow. This is absolutely mind-boggling. Science has done it again. Am I overdoing it with the irony? Maybe, but you're still here, and that's what matters. All I'm trying to say is that a scientific approach to strength or hypertrophy training is good old traditional hard lifting with some structure and using the totality of available scientific evidence as a base to inform your decisions. Now, obviously, being evidence-based is not just looking at what the studies say, but taking your own preference and experience into the equation. So if for any reason you see that you can perform better training a muscle group twice per week, you can do so, and that may lead to better gains over time. However, you know that even if you were to train once per week, that's totally fine. I also think that sometimes the word based may be carrying a bit more weight than it should, and that saying science-informed training may be a bit more appropriate in some cases, as I do think that people misunderstand the word based. Although we are based and red-pilled, actually science-pilled, but at the same time people often hear based and think that all our training or a science-based training program is just based on abstracts and conference presentations. Another thing, and this is last but not least, that constitutes a scientific approach to training is having an open mind to changing your ways in the light of more emerging scientific literature. If we get 5 or 6 or 10 new studies showing that X actually works better than Y at getting you bigger, that's something that you should pay attention to. And if you're doing Y, it may be better to do X. There you have it. A scientific approach to getting bigger and stronger is not as complicated as some people make it out to be. That does not mean that we can't geek out and have debates and actually do studies and look at minute details and optimization and so on and so forth. All that is cool, and that's what my life is all about. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and send me your hard-earned money. My bank account details are there. Please, guys, I am begging you. I am desperate out here. Things are very rough. I've invested a lot in making these videos. I'm flying guys from Greece out to here. I'm driving them. My car is not fuel efficient. Please send me money. Subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe and you just want to send me money, just send me the money. Please send me